Hey guys, January 21st, 2026 here with your after hours recap. We could just kind of start with what I was doing today. A-Lab, very quickly in the morning, you start to break and lose this 20 simple moving average. I, of course, end up cutting my position. I didn't really want to watch all my gains go back, but right towards the middle of the day, we get this 620 setup, and I am relonging my A-Lab. Then you all of a sudden get the Trump news, Greenland, and then you get the nice move higher. So very, very nice, at least getting re-involved in that. And you'll kind of notice end of day, it was, everything was bouncing, whether it was your cipher, and we could talk about this one as well. I did get stopped out on the final of my position, breaking today's low of day. I fortunately didn't hold this for this other dollar something washout. And then, I didn't rebuy this 620 setup, but if you were looking at Cypher, if you were looking at Iron, if you were looking at EOSE, if you were looking at AAOI, everything was bouncing right around the same time. A bid just came into the market once Trump said that there was going to be some resolution with Denmark over Greenland. So that was pretty interesting to see. And really for me, it was just getting out of A-Lab only to then, which was nice because I got to take the rest of it off for some profit, and then I got to relaunch it right around $171 and change, and then a really nice push for about a $7-8 push for my entry. We'll see what it does tomorrow. Probably some volatility would be the safe assumption. Alibaba, funny, I saw this move yesterday and I'm in from 159 bucks and I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm going to get out of half of my position. But today, what happens? You basically undercut yesterday's lows. As soon as you start to reclaim VWAP, I'm like, okay, I'm adding some onto my BABA, which is exactly what I did. Market starts to weaken. This thing hangs on to low and then goes on for a very nice close. So that was nice getting to hold on to some BABA. Yesterday, I trimmed some Netflix on the gap down for earnings, about 83 bucks. So that was nice. Obviously, we closed just a touch higher today. There's nothing left for me to do with the Netflix except just let it work. Right at the open, SILJ, I put on right at 36 bucks, a renewed short. And then same thing with SLV. I put some short on as well. So for now, we're just going to kind of let it work. Obviously, one of the things you guys probably all noticed is when the market was ripping, metals were falling. So I don't know if that's a relationship that's going to kind of stay true, that, the markets maybe rally tomorrow and then the metals stay heavy. That is something to kind of keep an eye on over the coming days. Obviously, when you look at silver and silver futures, you are quite extended away from the 50 simple moving average. And I don't care what it is, you get too extended from the 50, you either go sideways, and sideways, I guess, would be fine for a renew leg higher, or you end up correcting through price. And then finally, some ExxonMobil. I finally, after a month of holding, decided to trim some off 133 and change, which was very, very nice to get some off the table after a month of holding. Finally go ahead and get some off, 20% of the position gone, and now I can just comfortably sit here in the ExxonMobil over the coming week. Oil services, absolutely fantastic. Really, really nice push today. If you looked at like SLB, HAL, really nice moves out of those names as well. If you looked at Home Builders, Toll Brothers, or ITB for that matter, this thing is starting to look like maybe we're turning around in the Home Builders, Toll being the nicer base, in my opinion. And then the KRE, which is regionals. Regional banks, absolutely phenomenal. And of course, on a pickup in volume, this sort of action is going to be bullish for the IWM, the Russell, which was at a new closing high today. So very, very nice. Money continues to flow into the Russell. Money continues to flow out of the software stocks. Obviously, look at Microsoft today. Despite the late afternoon bounce, this looks pretty disgusting. You tried to find some support on the rising 200, ultimately rolled over. I don't know if we're going to have a quick little snapback, but if you look at Microsoft, if you look at the cybersecurity stocks, if you looked at literally any software application name, it just doesn't look good. Even Palantir, looking a little bit vulnerable, potentially a stage 3 top. We just don't know. But ultimately, I know a few guys shorted this thing into the 20 a few days ago. Probably a move down into the 200 simple moving average seems to be what is most likely. And then AppLovin, kind of, Crimea River. I had this thing as a short 611. I got stopped out the next day. That kind of sucked. What did it do? It just hit the declining 20 and then ultimately rolled over. Is this as well another late stage base? And AVGO, ditto. Is this thing just a late stage base, or at the very least a move into the 200 simple moving average? I don't know, but we will definitely be finding out soon. It was a little bit choppy for me, kind of on both sides of the market. I ended up having to get rid of Cypher. That ended up turning out to be a flat trade. Like I said, I added on to Baba. NEM, I didn't do a thing with it, but if you kind of looked around the entire group, Wheaton Precious Metal, bearish engulfing, not the prettiest for now, but tomorrow that can change. Barrick, bearish engulfing. GFI, bearish engulfing. Agnico Eagle, bearish engulfing. And just pretty much everywhere you looked, all of these things look the same. Yes, there are some like Hecla, which continue to show some strength and close green. Even my NEM effectively flat on the day. So there are some that are acting better than others. But ultimately, we are still extended on silver, so either sideways or down is my only two expectations. If it continues to go higher, fantastic. I won't be in the trade. And then on the flip side of that, these memory stocks, MU, unbelievable. Micron, SanDisk continues to be fantastic. Up 10% today, and then up another $7 in after hours. Are we starting to get there a little bit too extended? I don't know. I don't really want to kind of cherry pick the top on this one. It's a little too volatile for me. But if we can get a bigger extension, 550s or something like that, I think that could be pretty interesting, at least for a quick mean reversion. But not necessarily something that I want to step in front of. And then you could even look at speaking of mean reversions, HYMC had been one that was just going completely vertical, and then today, at one point I think it was down 7-8+%. And then even CRDO on the semi side, closed fairly weak as well, down almost double digits. So it's kind of a group of haves versus have-nots in the semi space. And then pretty much similar story everywhere you look, right? Where's money going? Where's money leaving? Healthcare stocks, I think, continue to look pretty well. Home builders continue to look pretty great. Regional banks, I think, don't look too bad. Anything else? And then obviously you've got your AVGOs, your AppLovins, your Palantirs. Are these late stage bases? Even your NVIDIA. And that is one that I actually got short today. And now we're kind of using this 50 simple moving average as the guide. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I don't really want to, judge how it's going to act, because on one side, I am long ALAB, and on the other side, I'm short NVIDIA. So, kind of riddle me that one. I've been noticing the strength in AMD. I kind of mentioned it yesterday. This chart should be front and center, but I didn't really see a spot to buy it today. And unfortunately, this thing just is so effing strong. It won't slow up. Big accumulation volume. I don't know who the hell is buying this thing, but somebody is buying the absolute shit out of AMD, and it is acting awesome. This drop in reversal was absolutely perfect on Monday the 12th. I did not buy it on that day, and ever since then, it has been showing a ton of relative strength, while the market X week, AMD does not. So with the exception of maybe one day last Thursday the 15th. Otherwise, this thing has been an absolute powerhouse. So something to keep an eye on, a name to see if maybe we can build a higher low, tighten up, something over the next week or two. Finally, a little bit of deflation in the aerospace and defense stocks, right? A little bit of a pullback in Rocket Lab, a little bit of a pullback in KTOS, a little bit of a pullback in KRMN, a little bit, and this thing, wow, holy cow, KRMN. Don't exactly know if there was news there, but that's pretty unbelievable. And then a little bit of a pullback in PL and ASTS as well. So, the group finally seeing a little bit of profit taking, this one being, kind of the nastier of the bunch. But, we'll see if this ends up being, nothing more than a shakeout before some continuation higher. This has been kind of where the money has been going lately. And then even in ALB, fantastic little bounce back today, just right off the 20, gap up today. I mean, just awesome action in some of these other metals. And hopefully the market today, could very well be that it was some good news and it starts to mark us back up into an uptrend considering the chop. But we have to continue to live above the 50 simple moving average. we are technically still building some higher lows, even though we did take out a few days of price as higher lows. So the VCP pattern is, a little bit choppier than maybe most of us were hoping for, but ultimately the market doesn't want to make anything too easy, and we will kind of see where we go from there. Obviously, even a Tesla today, absolutely wicked action. You come back down into that 420 level, and then all of a sudden you're up 18 points from there in just a matter of 90 minutes. So that is pretty insane, or 2 hours. That's pretty insane in terms of price action, and we will kind of see where we go from there. Like I said, there's still things that look totally fine, right? Eli Lilly just still base building here. Regional banks look fine. Home builders are shaping up. Healthcare stocks look fine. Biotechs look pretty good. The memory stocks, are they getting a little long in the tooth? Maybe. Some semiconductors continue to act really well. Some semiconductors, like AVGO look like shit and CRDO look like shit. But on the flip side of that, AMD, your LRCX, your KLAC, your ASML, your AMAT. I mean, these things are just unbelievable. So, you just have to kind of continue to ask yourself, where's money going? Somebody asked me today, am I bearish on the market? And then the first thing I said is, well, what market am I trading, right? If I'm long XOM, I'm bullish oil service stocks, right? They're acting bullish. I'm in one. I want to remain bullish. And then on the flip side, if you're seeing software stocks come down, right, what market are you looking at? So that's just kind of where my head is at. I'm trying my best to stay in some of my stocks, but I am getting shaken around out here. Cypher ended up, like I said, being a flat trade. No big deal. Just too bad I didn't buy it back at 17 bucks. And ALAB, shaken out, but I did take some nice profits off the table, and I was able to buy it back, and we had a pretty decent close. So just kind of taking the good with the bad at the moment. It is a little bit difficult, but we will continue to see what transpires over the rest of the week. And I'm really interested to see how that relationship plays out between the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and some of the metals, right? You saw today, the NASDAQ push, metal started to flush, the NASDAQ flush, metal started to rip or hold a bid, and then, vice versa. So that relationship is definitely there, at least for today, just for one day, I guess. But that will be interesting to see how it plays out going forward. And today, hopefully, was just a shakeout, and we could start to get some cleaner price action. Fingers crossed. So hopefully you guys are continuing to trade well. Finally, a little bit of traction for me, even though it's been a little bit choppy, and that's really how it's felt. And then, finally just being able to take a little bit of profits off the table on some of my better acting names, whether on the long or short side, and then just kind of get repositioned and not argue with the market too much. Just kind of sidestep today's little downtrend while, my XOM continues higher. That's always a pretty good feeling. And then being able to get resituated. Yes, there are some stocks that, do have my attention, like this AAOI. I don't think that this looks, terrible. I still don't think that, a Cypher looks too bad despite this insane volatility candle. I still think that maybe the shakeout in iron, that was a pretty good thing. And we'll just kind of see where we go from there. So just one day, you get kind of a nasty close, and then the next day things are starting to look a little bit better. Sometimes it's you need the shakeout before the breakout, and that's kind of my hope with a name like ALAB. But we will see what happens tomorrow. So hopefully you guys are all staying safe out there. And I will see you guys all bright and early tomorrow morning. Cheers.